Welcome to the Ketovangelist Kitchen. I'm Brian.
And I'm Carrie.
And this podcast is dedicated to making things simple and easy for you in the kitchen. Carrie Brown is a classically trained, world-class chef who has a passion for creating ketogenic recipes that taste better than anything you've ever experienced. But more than that, she loves teaching people how to cook the right way.
And each week on this podcast, Brian and I discuss all the ways you can create awesome keto food that is guaranteed to make you a rock star in the kitchen.
If you'd like to learn more about Ketovangelist Kitchen, you can go to KetoVangelistKitchen.com and sign up for the newsletter.
In exchange for your email address, you'll get brand new recipes delivered to your inbox, ready for you to whip up in the kitchen and enjoy with your friends and family.
So sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and learn. You're about to enter the Ketovangelist Kitchen. And hello again, everybody. So you can hear the echo of me saying hello again, everybody, in Carrie's microphone, because every time there's a silence and then I come back on, you hear me echoing in her microphone. So all the listeners got a double dose of me just now, Carrie. Just so you know.
Stereo Brian.
Stereo Brian. I like that a whole lot better. I could deal with that. I could do that. Stereo Brian. It has a
rather than Salami Brian.
Right. Yes, it has a much.
But everybody loves it when I call you Salami Brian. We have emails and messages and Facebook posts saying, "Yay, Salami Brian."
Everybody does not love that.
Mm-hmm. Apart from you, but
I for one.
You don't count. We all know that.
I, being a member of the set of everybody, do not like that. So Stereo Brian is better. So. But
that doesn't mean anything.
Oh, it does. Oh, sister, it does. It means that you can turn one side. I don't know what it means. It means something. It's like there's two of me.
Salami Brian has this deep meaning. It has this deep connection for all our wonderful keto people.
Can we start this over? Just out of curiosity? No? Okay.
No.
All right. So...
am I right, keto people? Lovely listeners, am I right?
Okay, so here's the deal.
Resounding yes.
Yes, if okay, so then let's ask the people, and I'm going to regret this. Is now, and this is a little unfair because people have had more time to deal with Salami Brian as opposed to the brand new, even improved Stereo Brian. So if you let us know which one you think is better, and if it's the wrong one, I will exact my revenge upon you.
Bring it on.
All right. So, hey, what are we talking about today? We're talking about something, right? What are we talking about?
We are going to talk about something.
Oh, fantastic.
I know.
What?
Let's read a review.
Oh, you know what we should do now that you bring that up? We should read a review.
Okay.
So while you bring up a review that you want to read, let me remind folks who are listening, we could use your help. We can use your help in iTunes through either through your podcast app or through iTunes itself. If you've got an account, log in and leave us a nice rating and review. Show the world how awesome Carrie is. Because I got to be honest with you, it's been a few weeks and we haven't had any. It's been a few weeks and we haven't had any reviews, and I we're getting lonely. We could use the help. So go to iTunes, use your app that you're using to listen to the podcast and talk about how awesome we are. And by we, I mean Carrie. So, all right, Carrie, up to you now. Over to you, Carrie.
Woohoo! So we had a mother of a review from Mel Someday Holt. I'm not sure what the someday in parentheses was meant to be. However, I respectfully will allow Mel to call herself Mel Someday Holt.
Okay, but I think her actual middle name is Wednesday, and she just didn't want to be prejudiced for the particular, or he or she didn't want to be prejudiced against that particular day of the week.
Okay.
That's my theory.
We'll go with that.
Okay.
So anyway, Mel writes, she entitled her podcast review, I Heart Ketovangelist Kitchen, ! And gave us 5 stars. And here's what she wrote, and it's long, and I'm going to try and read it in its entirety without interrupting, without any asides.
Okay, hold on. Okay, let me do one aside real quick. I want you to read it in an American accent. Can you do that?
I can't.
You can't.
Like the only word I can say in American is butter.
Butter. Okay, all right. I've interrupted you. Please go on.
And I don't think she mentions butter.
No.
In her review.
All right, then have at it.
So we're going to have it in British.
All right, there we go.
So here's what Mel says. She says, they know how to party like it's 1999. They are America's next top model. They never sweat. Their strengths outweigh their weaknesses. They are constantly caller number 9 and win tickets to all the best shows. Carrie makes extraordinary four-course meals using only a spatula and a toaster oven. They dance with the stars. They once read Paradise Lost, The Odyssey, and War and Peace all in one day and still had time to refurbish an entire dining room that evening. Critics worldwide swoon over Carrie's facial expressions when Brian does his horrible British accent and makes a cheesy joke. Carrie can bake 30-minute keto brownies in 20 minutes flat. Mums and dads love them, and all the keto peeps want to be them. Carrie knows the exact location of every item in the supermarket. Brian always picks the fullest and most symmetrical Christmas trees. They eat keto. They are go-getters. They sleep once a day. And they make me feel like all my life struggles have been solved by listening to Ketovangelist Kitchen. Oh, and they're keto gods. So basically, they rock.
Wow, that's a heck of a review.
Right?
And you got through the whole thing.
I did.
Hey, so
do I get a gold star for that?
You get 5 gold stars.
Perfect.
That's what Mel gave us. For the record, 5 is as high as you can go. It wasn't like 5 stars out of 30, because that would be bad, right? So 5 out of 5. So thank you, Mel, for that. That was quite the review. I do take umbrage with one thing though. I think you know where I'm going with this. I don't understand why people keep referencing my cheesy joke. None of my jokes are about cheese. All of my jokes are straight up funny and awesome. I don't get it. I don't know what I'm missing. But other than that, Mel, thank you for that outstanding review. We think you're awesome too. Don't we, Carrie? We
absolutely do.
All right.
And if you have a review tool, Mel, I would love to write one back.
Yes. So if you're listening to this and you want us to read your review online, go ahead and leave us one at iTunes. Even if you don't want us to read it in online, leave it in iTunes, because we will anyway. Because that's just.
And actually, you have 3 reader choices. You have Brian in American, you have Brian in appalling British, or you have Carrie in proper British. Those are your choices, unless you include butter, in which case you can hear Carrie say that in American.
Wait, what now? You again? I heard you. You slipped it in there. Appalling British, really? This is what we're going with. You're so mean to me. Okay, so Carrie Brown, what are we going to be talking about today? What's the topic of discussion?
The topic of discussion is: don't let your kitchen overwhelm you.
Don't let your kitchen overwhelm you. Okay, so here's the thing. Before we get into this, I want to share some insights that I've had recently about this particular phrase. In particular, the word overwhelm. You've heard the word overwhelm, and you've heard the word underwhelm. Why is it that nobody's ever just whelmed? Why is everyone always overwhelmed or underwhelmed? And no one's like, hey, how are you today? Totally whelmed. And everyone's like, copacetic, brother. I feel you. I woke up this morning and I was totally whelmed and the world was right. Like, why does that not work? What is it about being whelmed that you can't be on the middle? Like, you have to be over or under. There's nothing with that. Any idea?
Well, it's kind of like the whole high carb, low carb, really, isn't it? There's never just a carb.
Yeah, okay.
Do you high carb? Do you low carb? I carb. Do you low fat or you high fat? I fat. That just never happens, does it?
So I think the same people invented Whelmed. I think so.
I think we should start a trend.
Just
We should start a movement.
should we? Are we going to?
Being whelmed movement.
I got you. Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. You should seek wellness.
Yes. Let's all progress towards whelmed.
Oh, this here. I think I like where this is going. Health and wellness, for sure. Yes, this is good. This is good stuff. I'm writing this down right now. Okay, so getting back on topic after we've been so taken off track by Carrie Brown, which she's notoriously known for. Don't let your kitchen overwhelm you. Now, does that mean that you've got like robots in your kitchen and you're fighting them off? What do you mean when you say don't let your kitchen overwhelm you?
For me, my kitchen doesn't overwhelm me. But then I kind of grew up in one, and I started grating cheese at 3 years old, and and I've kind of grown up with it. But I think for a lot of people, for people who don't cook or never had to, or existed on fast food, the kitchen can just seem like this really overwhelming, scary, like I don't know where to start space. But even for people who were cooking, moving to keto is somewhat completely different, and so they're having to change everything they thought they knew, and do something different. And they've got a kitchen full of stuff which now doesn't really work, so they need to change it. And I think that can become very overwhelming for people, because for new cooks, for old cooks changing a lifestyle, for people new to keto, or for people who were raised and have lived on a fast food lifestyle, you kind of have to learn some of your own kitchen things. And I just think that it can be very overwhelming for those groups of people, which is most of us at some point. And so I just wanted to talk about how you can not be overwhelmed. And I think the problem with being overwhelmed for a lot of people is that we're not just overwhelmed in one space of our lives. There's stuff coming. I mean, I've got the grass grows in spring. I'm overwhelmed by my lawn, and the title people didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so now I'm overwhelmed with legal documents and when you add life and children and spouses and day jobs and all of that, if you then add your kitchen is overwhelming you, it can be very easy to just allow the overwhelm to make you just go, I can't do this, and you hightail it down to McDonald's or wherever. And so that's why we wanted to do this podcast, was to don't let your kitchen be one of the things that's in that pile of things that are overwhelming you.
All right, so we're talking to a variety of folks, right? So we're not talking to one individual group of people. We're talking to both folks who are kind of new in the kitchen, folks who have been in the kitchen for a while. So switching from what you've known your entire life of how to cook it and, that sort of thing, to going keto, it can be, so people are dealing with having to shift that paradigm, and it can be a stressful situation by looking around your kitchen and thinking, okay, I've got to get all of this stuff out, and I've got to get all this stuff in, and I don't know when I'm going to have time to do it, and I'm freaking out, and it's just too hard, and forget it, right? So this is what we're trying to address, right?
Right.
All right. So then, how do we go about it? What is this? What's the step? What's the first thing that you have to do?
I mean, obviously, there's various ways to do it, but I think the big thing to remember is, the whole, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time.
I was gonna say grilled, but okay, one bite at a time. That works too. Sorry.
You don't. I think this is the biggest. If you take away one thing from this podcast, it would be, you don't have to do it all at once. This can be a progress, not perfection thing. Very much a progress, not perfection. You don't have to like wake up tomorrow. And we get a lot of people in our Ketovangelist Kitchen Facebook group, come join us if you haven't, who are like, okay, I'm starting on Monday, or I'm starting on April 1st, or I'm starting on wherever. They have this thing, which is great, because if that's how your mind works, then that's great. And if you're just like cold turkey, that's great too. You know, whatever works for you. But I think the people who kind of set a date to start are maybe thinking along the lines of, you know, there's all of this stuff I have to do, and I can't start until it's all perfect. And, you know, if it's not perfect, I'm going to fail. And I would suggest that none of that is true. You can go at whatever speed makes sense for your budget, your lifestyle, the other people in your house, any rate at which you do not get overwhelmed. I don't want people to think that there's this kind of on-off switch, or it's kind of black and white, and if you're not like fully keto, then it's not going to work. But that's what I'm kind of trying to help you understand here.
So the big takeaway of what you're describing here is, okay, so first of all, take a breath, right? Like, so if you're feeling that sense of stress, if you're feeling that sense of overwhelm, just take a beat, take a breath, take a step back, and realize, okay, you don't have to fundamentally change everything right now. You have time, right? And you need to give yourself permission to accept that and allow that to be a reality for you, right? That's what you're getting at?
Yes, and I think, and everybody that has done keto for a while, even though there's so many like instant success weight loss stories attributed to keto, which is great, but keto is not a short-term thing. Keto is a long-term thing.
Right.
And I think that by having this mentality of, you know, if I'm not perfect the day I start, then it'll never happen for me, or you're kind of making it a short-term fix, a short-term thing, and it's not. So as Brian says, take a step back and go, okay, this is how I'm going to live for the rest of my days, because it's awesome and I'm going to feel amazing, and I'm going to mitigate all sorts of diseases and costs and stuff that I wouldn't done anyway. Look at it like that, as opposed to I've got to have it all perfect now, and if I don't, I can't get there, and if I haven't got there in a week, then I failed, and, you know, all that kind of negative stuff. This is a long-term thing. So it's not something that you have to be perfect out the gate.
Right. So it results in this like downward spiral for a lot of people, where you get stressed. So you realize that you can't do all of these massive changes. So it adds to your stress. And then you realize you've got even more things to worry about. And all of a sudden you're in this downward spiral where you're just feeding all of this negativity. Right. So the real thing that we want to get at is, making the change to keto is a fundamental change. It is a sea change inside of your reality, inside of your lifestyle. But you also have to make it work within your lifestyle as well. So the last thing that we want, the last thing that you should be dealing with is all of that added stress. So for example, if you think, you know, I've got all of these ingredients that are no longer keto in my kitchen, what am I supposed to do with it? Or if you think, I need to go out and buy all of these ingredients because I don't have them, and that's what's keto, I don't know how to even start. Okay, so I think those are two sides to the same coin, right? That you're either one of those situations are going to be adding to that stress level. So what do you tell someone? What do you say to someone with either one of those situations?
So given that the number one thing that drives keto or drives getting into ketosis is the absence of carbohydrates. If you're looking to change, you know, one thing or you know, three things, your first week or is so switch out your sweeteners. Mm-hmm. And then switch out or get rid of all the stuff that's made with grains.
Okay, so
those would be for me where I would start, would be because the devils in this equation
right.
is sugar and processed carbohydrates.
Right. So as a starting
that's where
point,
I would start.
Yeah, and I totally agree. The starting point is get rid of the sugar, get rid of the grains. Right? Like start there and then take an assessment. Now, I've said this to people before, and people close to me as well, and they've kind of pushed back, saying, "Yeah, but I spent all this money." My response is it may not sound. I mean, it sounds kind of mean or heartless, but it's not. I mean, think about it from a rational perspective. I've spent all this money, and okay, the money is spent. So unless you're going to go sell the stuff, it's already spent. You're not going to get that money back. You know that you've decided to get healthy, so you can't eat this stuff. So either throw it out or give it to a food shelter or something like that. Give it to a place that can utilize the food. But just because you spent the money on it is no excuse for you to have to eat it. I'm using air quotes for the have to eat it. You know what I'm saying?
Because any food for someone who has none is better than none.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So give it to the food bank, or for someone who has nothing, do that.
Right. Okay. So the whole idea of, oh, I don't want to give it away, or I can't give it away because I spent all this money. Okay, the money is spent, right? And look, I went through it too. I think everyone who goes through keto, who changes to keto, basically goes through the same kind of thing, and it's like a rite of passage. Let's say that. So okay, the money spent, you can't get it back. Just do something more beneficial with the food than killing yourself or throwing it away, right? So give it to someone who could use the food. Okay, that would be like step one.
And so step one for me, my recommendation would be get rid of the sugar. So swap out the sweeteners. But then there's a whole other onion to unravel there of, well, then which sweetener? And one of the most asked questions on Facebook is, what sweetener do I use? Because there's an increasing number of keto-friendly, low-carb, non-sugar sweeteners out there because they're recognizing that there's a huge market for it. So then you've got this other thing. Well, which sweetener do I use? We've done a podcast on sweeteners, so you can go listen to that. But just my like 20-second to get started. And also, these are the absolute most budget friendly, which for a lot of people, particularly when you're starting, because you do have this kind of hump of replacing stuff. Plain erythritol, plain xylitol, and plain stevia. That's it. You don't need to spend $15 a pound, $11 a pound on Swerve or Payur or all these blends or Truvia or da-da-da-da. There's a whole lot of problems inherent to blends because the manufacturers are blending them with things that are essentially sugar. And so just if you want to dabble around and play later, fine. But if your number one goal is just to get sugars out of your kitchen, plain erythritol, plain xylitol, plain stevia.
So but what you're not
keep it simple,
right? But what you're not saying is you've got to have all three, right?
Right.
You're not saying you have to have all three. We're saying get rid of all the sugar, and if you need, and here's the key point: if you need to replace the sweetener, because you may not need to. Not everyone does. And what I'm saying is, if having occasional sweet tasting foods is something that you need in order to stay on track, God bless you. Use one of those three. Don't go outside of that playground, basically. Either erythritol, stevia, xylitol. And
yes, because it's not mandatory. I think a lot of people, new people particularly, we see it in the Facebook group, is that they're like, oh, do I have to have that to be able to do this? Do I have to have, X? Do I have to? No, you don't. The goal is to get rid of certain things. There's no right way in terms of how to do it. There's a right way in terms of what needs to be gone. But you don't, if you can exist without any sweeteners at all, then I go for it. But if you do need sweeteners, those are the ones you should start with.
Right. Okay. So if the idea of having to get rid of all of the sugar that's in your kitchen is leaving you like fretting about it, relax. You have alternatives. So there's that, right? So again, we don't want you feeling frustrated or like overwhelmed by that. So, that's a pretty easy solution, right? Now, there are other things that you're going to have to obtain, and there are other things you're going to have to get rid of from your kitchen. So what's kind of the next steps, what we're talking about?
So other things that are relatively easy to switch out, which are, you don't have to be done with them, is things like products which are high sugar. So you can switch out, so stop buying regular cow's milk, start buying heavy cream, stop buying yogurt with added sugars or fruits or flavorings in, start buying plain full-fat Greek yogurt. Those are, and the goal again is to reduce your sugar intake, because that's the number one driver to get you into ketosis, is the removal of sugar. So, that could be your week one, is identifying, okay, where's all the hidden sugars and what can I have instead of that? And instead of trying to where's all the hidden everything,
right?
Just focus on the sugars. And dairy is one way that's relatively easy to just switch out from regular yogurt to whole milk, no added sugars, Greek yogurt. That's, an easy switch. Of course, you'll need to figure out which brands are yours. So there'll have to be a bit of label reading involved in that to start with. But once you've found the brand, that's it, right? Then you just know, if I'm buying yogurt, that's what I'm buying. I'm not buying this, but I am buying that.
So that what you just described, that process for me was a very eye-opening process. And it was a very, admittedly, it was somewhat frustrating, only from the point of view of realizing that food producers who are producing for the general mass public, they put so much sugar in everything, it seems. And it gets to the point where you're just like, I can't eat anything because it's got so much sugar in it. But if you think that's not true, it's just a matter of finding the alternatives and making the adjustments that you need to make in order to put your health first. So yes, I will tell you that going through your pantry and through your fridge to find the foods that have sugar in them, high amounts of sugar in them, it can be daunting. It can be a little sad. It can be a little frustrating, but relax. It's not like there's no alternatives to it. It's not like you're going to starve. It's just a matter of these are your steps to make sure that you can walk into the kitchen and be comfortable and be in a situation where you're not stressed by it. So be prepared though. It is. Sorry, hold on one second. It is a frustrating thing. I mean, it is an overwhelming thing. I can remember standing in my pantry, looking at the food that I bought over the past several months and thinking, I can't eat any of this because it's just got so much crap in it. And yeah, it did. And I promptly got rid of it. Right. So anyway, my point is, yeah, it's frustrating, but you're not the only one, and don't get overwhelmed by it. So go ahead.
And again, and I'm going to say this repeatedly throughout the rest of this podcast, you don't have to do it all at once.
That's really the key. I mean, that really is key to this, right? If you break it down into a step-by-step process, you don't even have to do 3 things a week. You can just choose to do 1 thing a week, right? And
so, next week you might go, okay, I'm buying, I have regular ketchup. And there's enough in there to last me another 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks on my grocery list is going to be finding ketchup without. And in the meantime, I will just eat up what I've got left because I can't afford to do it all at once, or I'm overwhelmed by doing it all at once. So ketchup is on my week 2 list of things to change out. You don't have to do it all at once. When you get started, the idea is to, every little step you take is one step closer to a healthier you, and you're getting a step closer to being in ketosis. And this doesn't have to be a cold turkey thing. We would rather you do it in steps than try and do it cold turkey and fail, or get so overwhelmed that you don't even try.
Would you say that someone would have to catch up to the second step if they followed? See what I did there? No? Okay. I am nailing it today.
That's comment worthy right there, people. Somebody stop him, please.
All right. So the point of that is, first of all, I make awesome jokes. Second, though, I think more importantly is that's a perfect example of what we're talking about, right? So it's not like I've got to do it all right now. Relax, and here's the thing. After the first, second, third, fourth, fifth day of you making these good choices, of you deciding to put your health first, it gets a whole lot easier, right? As the days sort of pile up, making these decisions and getting rid of all this other stuff is so much easier, right? It's especially easier if you're of the personality to where taking those baby steps is much more helpful to you. There's like my wife, for example, is very much a kind of dip your toe in the pool personality. I dove off the cliff head first into the pool to see how deep it was. That's kind of how I do things. So we're very different personalities. So you don't have to feel overwhelmed. You can take it step by step, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Hand in hand with that, though, I think is you have to, if you're going to do the step by step so that you're not overwhelmed, I do think you have to put on your suit of armor if you then get on social media or go on the Facebook groups or whatever, because you are going to get if you share what you're doing, there might be some of the hardcore people who are going, well, that's not keto. And it's just like, okay, but I'm switching that out in 2 weeks. So it's okay. And just be okay with just sitting with where you are and being good with where you are, knowing that next week it's going to be better because there'll be less garbage and more good stuff in your pantry. And, as the weeks go by, so just you're going to have to steel yourself for the keto police.
Yeah.
Don't let those people, and bear in mind, their intent is good.
Right.
They're trying to help, but just don't feel pressured or overwhelmed by other people, trying to push you faster than you're comfortable to going, or faster than your budget will allow you to go, or, whatever. You need to do this at a speed that will keep you in.
Right. And that's what's really key, is setting yourself up for that long-term sustainability and making sure that it's a lifestyle for you. If you're looking for a quick fix, look somewhere else. Honestly, this is not neither Carrie nor I will be able to engage you in that. Good luck to you though. But if you realize this is a lifestyle and this is for lifetime of health, then please continue listening. So big takeaway there is, pace yourself, take your time, do what you got to do, and make sure you have a plan. Right. So make sure that you're not just arbitrarily, I'll try this now. Oh, I'll try that now. Like it doesn't hurt to write things down. It doesn't hurt to plan things out so that because you can take comfort in that, because the days are going to go by. It's going to be a grind at times, and sometimes you're going to feel frustrated and your emotions are going to shift this and that. It's good to have that anchor point that you can go back to say, okay, I can relax. I know that in 2 days, this is what's coming next, and I can get prepared for it, and whatever. So it never hurts to plan this stuff. I know for some personalities, that may seem silly for me to say that, but it's the truth, right? So there's nothing wrong with writing stuff down.
It's not a competition. You're in competition with no one, with yourself. But, so if you aren't able, or it's not your personality, or you don't feel comfortable with just, waking up one day and changing everything in your whole life, then, when you see other people that do that, that's just like, wish them well. If that works for them, that's great. But don't you go and feel somehow less or somehow not good enough, because that's not what works best for you. And, so somebody lost 8 pounds in a week. Great for them. But, if that's not the way you work, then it's better that you lose 8 pounds over 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 months and actually lose it and keep it off than it is to do it quickly and then get overwhelmed and fail.
Yeah, and again, it's the long game, right? Okay, so the sort of the flip side of this is, because we're talking about, basically what we're talking about is ingredients, right? So it's not enough just to have ingredients. You actually have to use the kitchen to prepare meals, right? So meals is what happens when you do stuff with ingredients. So getting rid of the sugars and grains is a good start. Going through your pantry and realizing what contains those things and getting rid of them is a good start. Now, you actually have to buy food that you're going to be cooking with. So in our previous podcasts, we've given a pretty good detail of what keto foods are that you find at a typical grocery store. So we're not going to rehash that. So you can listen to that. But what we do want to talk about is you don't have to basically completely overhaul your entire menu in one fell swoop and then get used to cooking an entirely different kind of foods immediately. You can, again, ease yourself into that. So let's talk a little bit about that.
I would suggest when, and this is, maybe people think this is weird because what I do is create recipes. What I do is make stuff up so that you can have, a lot more delicious options to make your meals and your menus a lot more exciting and a lot more delicious. However, I'm going to be weird now and say, when you're starting, keep it simple. I would strongly recommend, to help you not get overwhelmed, is to not focus on looking for recipes to replace what you used to eat. Just keep it very simple. Meat, non-starchy veggies, and some fats. Right? Just keep it simple. So don't be wondering, I need to make all these keto baked goods, because this is all I see on Facebook, or you don't ever have to make any of those. They're there for people who want to and for people who enjoy them and, whatever. They're not mandatory. You won't fail if you don't do that.
Oh, so I do want to comment on something because you bring up a good point. And I saw this in the group a few days ago, or maybe it was a week or so ago. Someone was commenting basically, it's like they were saying, this is in the Ketovangelist kitchen group. Hey, I'm new to keto and I'm seeing all of these, and I forget what they said. It was something like the keto bread recipes or something like that. Do I really have to eat that? And it struck me as odd. Like it never would occur to me just because of my personality. Like don't tell me what to do. Like I'll see what people are like, hey, I'm making this. And I'm like, then I will never have that because that's just my personality. Right. But to see this, and I was like, oh, I guess people, thankfully not everyone thinks like me. So we need to make sure people are aware of that. Just because you see it in a keto group, just because you see it in a top-notch hot, or a really awesome keto group like ours, doesn't mean it's mandatory, right? So, and here's so even to the point of, say, bacon, butter, and coconut oil, which are three things that everyone is like, oh yeah, this is a mandatory thing for the keto, for anyone's keto kitchen. And I totally agree. However, what if you're allergic to coconuts? You can't have any coconut oil, but you can still totally be keto. What if butter, it doesn't do well for you? Okay, you can still be keto. What if you're kosher and you can't have bacon? Guess what? You can still be keto, right? So none of these things are, you've got to have them, but they are common, right? So when you see this list of this picture of things, then you're like, do I really need to make all of this and eat that? No, not at all. Not at all. Find what you like and work with that. And keeping it simple, especially at first, is really the best idea. That was your idea, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. You said that first. I was just repeating that. I was parroting that, as they say.
We do have a keto Kickstarter meal plan coming imminently. Maybe even before we air this. Maybe it will already be out when you hear this podcast.
Yeah, let's say maybe. Let's say that's possible.
So either it's coming soon or it's already out. Either way, look
Right.
for it, because it's very much around how to get, fast, simple dinner on the table every day without a lot of time, no keto baked goods. No, it's just really, really focusing on what we're saying now is, especially when you get started, and especially if you're not a cook, or the kitchen scares you, or you don't have time, or whatever. You do not have to make any of that stuff. Fortunately, or for what it's worth, the things that people like to post in Facebook is they love to post their wins. They love it when they've created some keto treat that tastes delicious, that makes their journey easier. And that's awesome. You don't have to start off with that. And they are never mandatory. There's a bunch of people on our Facebook group that never do that. And they are just as successful as the people who do. So, as Brian said, key takeaway, nothing is mandatory in what you can eat. What's mandatory in what you can't eat is the sugar and the grains and the processed carbs.
Yeah.
Those are the things that mandatorily you cannot eat. Everything else, you can be keto in a million different ways.
Yeah, and so just so you know, I'm one of those people who really doesn't like keto baked goods at all. And I'm talking to a pastry chef, right? So we can still be friends.
Really?
It's from my perspective, we can still be friends.
Okay.
Secretly,
Good.
Carrie
I'm glad
hates
we
me.
clarified that.
Secretly, Carrie doesn't like me at all. So when you guys aren't listening, she's constantly telling me how horrible I am. She's insulting me. I'm not making this up either. She's very mean to me. Carrie's not. She's not taking the bait. All right, moving on then. Okay, so keeping it simple, right? So keeping it simple with keto friendly veg and a nice chunk of meat, and add a good amount of fat to your daily requirement, and you're gonna be okay, right? Now, one of the cool parts about this sort of transitionary period is it gives you a chance to find out some foods that you like that you may not have known that you liked prior to, because let's be honest, one of the complaints that people make about keto is, I need a big variety. And if I were to examine your actual menu, like what you eat from week to week, I can promise you I'm not going to see a whole lot of variety. People are creatures of habit, and they find a certain amount of food that they like, and they stick with those as their staples. Now they may add things here and there, to frill out some stuff, and that's fine. But for the most part, most people's menus are pretty stable throughout the weeks and months. So you may find some stuff that you're not used to eating that you like, which is good. So what could be bad about that, right? Or could it?
So what you want to do when you're first starting out is focus on grilling or pan frying, sauteing some meat, whatever meat you like. Chicken with chicken with the skin on and the darker meat is a lot better from a keto perspective. And then adding some keto, non-starchy vegetables, and then adding some fat, avocado oil, butter. If that feels really boring because you're one of those people that likes a lot of variety, it's not forever. That's just to get you going, to give you time to breathe, so that you can, over, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you can work out what more you want to do, right? So the simple can be forever if that's your thing, but the simple doesn't have to be for forever. We're just suggesting that you start out that way to reduce the overwhelm. So You're getting fed, and it's all good food. And then, as you go on and you get more confident and you're starting to feel better and the hunger and the cravings are going away, then you can start looking at, okay, I want to do something more exciting. But it gives you time to do all that figuring out, rather than going, well, I can't start until I've got this all figured out. Get going with simple things. nice green salad. We did a podcast on lettuce that was awesome. And even Brian managed to talk about lettuce for an hour, which was like this huge win for me. I'm actually going to put that on my resume because it's just like one of the greatest accomplishments of my life. And
I don't know what to say to that. That's,
leeks, my favorite non-starchy veggies. Saute up some broccoli. We've got cauliflower. There's all sorts of things you can saute. Toss in some sliced green peppers. Mushrooms are a great thing to have with your meat. Keep it simple. Don't worry about sauces. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just to get started. And then over time, maybe, week 2, you'll replace all your sauces, your bottled sauces with either recipes that you can make yourself or from the keto-friendly versions that you can find in the grocery store. And the Facebook group lovely people, will help you with that. And again, if that sounds as dull as you like, it's not forever. It's just to give yourself time to figure out recipes and ingredients gradually rather than being overwhelmed by the thought of having to change everything at once.
Right. So now, again, that's a key point, right? So you start off as simple and you're like, I can't do it because I need variety. Okay, well, after you give yourself a couple of weeks, a few, like 4 or 6 weeks, whatever, of simple menu, then you can start adding things in because you've kind of gotten the habit, you've gotten used to a certain kind of way of eating, and so your tastes are going to change. So at that point, you can kind of adjust a little bit. So don't think it's forever. Now, if you're someone like me, I consider that perfectly fine. Like I can eat the same thing every single day, all day long, and I don't care. And
which is why we like to call him Salami Brian.
I would also like to recommend...
Which is why Stereo Brian just won't ever work.
Okay, here's the thing. I listen to music and audiobooks and podcasts on a pair of stereo headphones. So same thing. Only they have less, there's less carbs. There's less carbs in stereos. Boom. Nailed it. I am killing it today. Perfect response. Okay, so the big takeaway is the transition is going to be as easy as you allow it to be. So you don't have to feel overwhelmed. Keeping stuff simple, right? And again, one of the things that I talked about before that I'll go back into is planning makes it easier, right? So if you sit down, the beginning of your week, if that is Sunday, if that is Monday, whatever it is, the beginning of your week, sit down, write out a menu for the week so that when you go to the grocery store, you know what to get, so that you're alleviating temptations in the grocery store, so that you can, be focused, make a beeline for what you need to get. You know what recipes you're going to be making. It makes it a whole lot easier on you. Plan that week out, know what foods you're going to be making when, and it's much, much simpler in terms of how you're going to be spending your time. And I think that you'll enjoy it more as well, because you're going to feel the control that you have. One of the things about keto is it gives you that sense of control because you're no longer at the whim of this hormonal nightmare that you're going through.
And I've lost my train of thought again. What is wrong with me today?
I think it's because you're secretly laughing at all my awesome jokes, and that's why you can't keep a train of thought.
That must be it. There's been so many of them.
No more than usual. All right.
So it does take a bit of time. And again, don't get overwhelmed by this, but it does take a bit of time at the beginning to work out, what yogurt is the best yogurt and what ketchup is the best ketchup and what pizza sauce on our keto pizza is the best. But you don't get overwhelmed because you only have to do it once. Once you've figured out what in your locale or your locale, not low calorie, what in your area, in your physical environment, where the best keto friendly things are. Once you've done that work, you'll know forevermore now this is the brand I buy. So the hard work you only have to do once, and then you just know what to get after that. So don't get overwhelmed thinking, wow, my grocery shopping trips are taking me, 5 times as long and I just don't have time for this. That'll only be true for a little while until you've gone through the process of finding replacements. And then that will no longer be an issue. And in fact, you'll find that your trips to the grocery store take way less time because you're no longer distracted by all the new things or the weird things or the carb things, or you know exactly what you're going to get. I'm going to get this, this, this. So my grocery store trips now are way shorter than they used to be.
Yeah, and that's ultimately you will. And so one of the things that people do complain about is, oh, I started keto and it's so expensive. Well, it can be if you try to do everything all at once. But ultimately, over time, if you take into account all total expenditures of a household, keto becomes less expensive via time and via actual cash outflow, because you're spending less, because you will find out that you won't be eating as much, and the foods that you are eating, you're gonna get way more satiety out of them than otherwise. But also, you're spending a lot less time trying to gather those foods.
You're also, in my experience, going to eat a lot less in total volume. So although the volume of food that I would buy for me versus the volume of food I buy now is almost like, really? That's going to last a week? And I've been doing this a long time. But it's true. So I actually spend way less money now, because although the price of each individual item might be more, the total volume of food I eat is way less. So that works out as a net financial gain for me because of the volume. Even though, meat is more expensive and whatever, the total volume of food I eat has gone down, which gives me a net extra money.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it gives you a net Funicello, which is a totally different topic completely, because that's I'm taking it you don't know who a net Funicello is. No, okay. Beach blanket bingo, nothing.
I barely know who Jimmy Fallon is.
Oh,
I only found that out about 3 weeks ago.
They're not the same people. You also don't own a television, so that would explain why you don't know that.
Yeah, I also had to ask somebody what cable was earlier. So really, yeah.
That's because you've been in a coma since 1978, and you just were recently unfrozen.
I still won't be getting cable, but at least I do know what it is now.
Yes, and that's super important. Oh, you know what else is super important? It's Motivation Monday time.
I haven't finished.
Oh, we can get okay. Then hold on. I need to close out. Hang on. You can't just leave a Motivation Monday open. All right, then we'll come back to that. So go ahead, finish.
Just quickly. I also wanted to.
Oh, sorry. That was an accident. Sorry, we can't leave it open though. Hang on, we got to do it one more time. Here we go. All right, go ahead. And you were saying?
Are you done?
You were saying? I'm sorry.
I was saying I wanted to just mention equipment, because
okay.
That's another thing that I find people can get a bit, if you're on the Facebook groups and there's people making all this stuff and they've got mixers and whizzy things and handheld this and ice cream makers and blah. It's just like you don't have to replace your whole kitchen, or you don't need to add all this equipment to your kitchen.
Right.
For the most part, these things make life easier, simpler, and less work.
Right.
But probably apart from an ice cream maker and a slow cooker, and even a slow cooker you could do without that forever, because you just put your oven on low and put it in a pot and put it in the oven for 8 hours. So maybe an Instant Pot. Apart from an ice cream maker and an Instant Pot, everything else just makes it easier and less work. But you can still achieve everything without them. Okay? So, your whisk, you can whisk by hand. Yes, an electric one makes it easier, shorter, less arduous, but you can do it by hand. So my point of saying this is I have gadgets up the yin yang, but of course, I'm cooking stuff all the time and I have to do it quickly because I'm just developing recipes constantly. It would be crazy for me to do everything by hand. But you don't need to start off with all of this stuff. So when you see people talking about what gadgets they have on Facebook, you don't have to have any of them, particularly when you start out. They're nice to have, they're fun to have, they're helpful, but you don't need them to be keto.
Right. So this is exactly the same thing as what we were talking about before. When someone sees all these recipes, like, you don't have to go out and buy a sous vide, machine. You don't have to go out and buy all of this stuff. Get a skillet, get something to push food around with in the skillet. That should suffice. You don't need a huge amount. It's not a matter of, it's not like who collects the most toys. Now, if you're a veteran of the kitchen and you know how to use all these gadgets and stuff, and you just want to figure out how to do it to best accommodate this new style of food preparation, have at it. Go for it. But it's not a requirement. It's absolutely not required. Okay.
You'll probably find that, particularly if you find that you're enjoying cooking, if you're new to the kitchen or you want to do stuff faster or whatever, you'll undoubtedly find that you will get the budget to buy kitchen toys from the budget that you're no longer spending on food. So, but you don't have to have them all at once. Pace yourself, buy a toy every, whatever your budget will stand, if that's something you want to do. But you absolutely don't need them. And I just want people to understand that they can do this without all of that.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if you've made food in your kitchen before, chances are you've got everything you need to do that. So you don't need to go buy some new stuff. All right. So is it now time for Motivation Monday?
You may now play the jingle.
Yay, us. Okay, Motivation Monday. So here's what it is. The 3 C's of life. That's C, the letter C, not C as in sailing the ocean blue. The 3 C's of life are choices, chances, and changes. And the quote is, you must make a choice to have a chance or your life will never change. So choices first, take a chance, and see your life change, right? So that's what happens. That's the way it has to go. So this ties directly with what we're talking about, right? You have to make that choice of putting your health first. You have to take a chance to trust what we're talking about and to trust the process. And then you'll see the change over time through not only feeling and looking better, but becoming a much more confident and well-rounded, understanding person. You'll learn more about yourself, basically, is what I'm getting at. So choices, chances, and changes. So what do you have to say about that?
I have become an expert cliff diver.
Oh, okay.
Over my life. I say that I'm very, and I'm not sure why, but I'm just very good at going, I'm just going to jump off the cliff and see if there's a net. My point in saying that is, in my experience, there's always been a net. I have never been disappointed when I've just jumped off a cliff. Okay,
so that's that taking a chance thing, right?
So that middle bit is, once I've made my mind up,
right,
I'm not a stranger to just taking a chance, and it's never gone wrong. And so my point is, the fear is there, but you got to do it anyway. It's never worked out badly when I've done that. So I say that to give you some encouragement to take a chance.
Yeah, so it's important to realize what Carrie's saying. She's not saying it's always worked out the way she expected it to. What she's saying is it's never worked out poorly or badly. She's learned from it. She's grown from it. Things have kind of taken a weird twist, but because she took the chance, she's benefited from it, is what she's getting at. I'm of course putting words in your mouth now. Okay, so there you go. So one more time, let me read it again. It is the quote for Motivation Monday is, the 3 C's of life: choices, chances, and changes. You must make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change. So make that choice, take that chance, and improve your life, make that change. So there you go. All right. Is that everything?
I think that's everything. Well, I mean, I could go on for hours, you know that, but
Right. Okay. So then in that case,
hopefully
we have finished off the Motivation Monday. So spend your week thinking about that. Okay. So what's the final word? What's the parting shot here for don't let your kitchen overwhelm you?
you don't have to do everything at once. Work out a plan that works best for you. Do it gradually. If you do it over several weeks or even several months, that's fine. You're not in competition with anybody else. Go at the speed that will enable you to be successful long term.
Yes. So check out some of our previous podcasts if you want to know specifically what foods we would recommend that you get. We've told you in this podcast what foods you should absolutely get rid of. And, join the group, join the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Ketovangelist Kitchen. If you have further questions about whether or not certain foods are in that group of what's keto and what's not. Speaking of which, we're working on a new service called Certified Ketogenic, which is built specifically for that. So we can start getting some labels on foods to identify that, so you can kind of take the guesswork out of it. So look forward to more of that. All right. Well, Carrie, then this has been a good show, and I guess I'll talk to you next week.
Indeed, you will.
All right, then. There you go.
See ya.
And that'll do it for another show from Ketovangelist Kitchen. On behalf of Carrie Brown, I would like to say Brian really is very funny. Other than that, don't forget to go give us a nice rating and review. Take your time if you need to make this adjustment. If you're a kitchen veteran, don't feel like you got to get overwhelmed and stressed by the whole thing. Realize that you go at your own pace. That's what's key. All right. You can find us on social medias, Ketovan Kitchen on Twitter, Ketovangelist Kitchen Instagram, the Ketovangelist Kitchen on Facebook, Facebook group. Join us, holler at us, talk to us, because we like you. I like you. Carrie likes you. Yeah, we like you. All right. Until next time, y'all just keep being awesome. Powered by ketones.